What is up, y'all? This is DFS Dart Throws and Cash. That Thursday night game was something. Yeah, it was really bad. A lot of drop passes. Curtis Samuel was gonna be a decent pick, but I mean, he had like three or four drop passes. Carson Wentz apparently broke his finger. There's news going out about that right now. There was not much offense. These Thursday night games have not been fun to watch, but yeah, we messed up on our DraftKings lineups, that's for sure. It was a very defensive oriented game. I thought it was going to hit the over. It did not. It was well under the over, or it was well under the point total, and defenses were pretty important. Here is the Millie Maker lineup. He won $1 million. Justin Fields is the captain. I don't like to do quarterbacks as the captain spot, but in this one, he was optimal. He had 88 rushing yards, passing touchdown, 190 pass yards. Not too bad of a game for him. It still wasn't great though. I mean, he'll probably end up maybe top 15 quarterbacks on the week. Yeah, not a great game from anyone. Brian Robinson, they they forced him the ball too much. He's not as good as Antonio Gibson. It's unfortunate. I have Antonio Gibson in one of my leagues, and just watching Brian Robinson just get stuffed at the line over and over again, it was pretty terrible to watch. He got the goal line carry, which is really the only redeeming factor in this scenario. The only other player that had a decent game, well, I guess Darnell Mooney had a decent game. He almost caught a touchdown pass at the very end. I thought he caught it at first, but he only got possession outside the end zone, which was pretty cool. I had bet on the Commanders to win the game, and they won the game at the very last second. So that was nice for me. Then Dante Pettis, I want to say his name is. I think he played on the Steelers before, but he's kind of a no-name guy, and he went off this game for, I mean, off for what the game was. Four receptions for 84 yards and a receiving touchdown. We weren't really on any of these guys other than David Montgomery and Justin Fields. I had Curtis Samuel in a lot of lineups. The kickers didn't really do much. Yeah, just a bad night for me fantasy wise. I'm normally pretty good with these showdown slates, but this Thursday was not what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, so let's move on. Let's talk about this main slate uh, for tomorrow. I will go ahead and start this slideshow. I'm really liking these slideshows. I think they're a lot better than the Word document that I was doing. So I really only have like three or four games that I'm going to touch base on, just because there's not very many high point totals this week, and I think that I need to be a little bit more concise with the picks that I'm making. So this Bills Chiefs game, it's going to be amazing. Wearing my Chiefs hat just because the Panthers are horrible. We're yeah 1-4, I think I want to say. Yeah, it's bad. It's I mean at least we got rid of that rule. We're gonna make some changes, hopefully. PJ Walker is not that great. We just need a quarterback. That's really all it takes. Our wide receivers are okay, but our quarterback situation is just terrible. All right, so yeah, Bills, Chiefs. This is gonna be a good game. I can't wait to watch it. Implied team total is 28 for the Bills, 26 for the Chiefs. Josh Allen is still at the same price as he was all season, and he hasn't scored under 24 points all season, and he won't start here. This is going to be a close game. Allen's going to destroy. I mean, this is going to be a really high scoring game. I think it's going to hit the over of 54. I mean, the Bills' D is good, but I think the Chiefs' offense is better than the Bills' D, so I think there's going to be a lot of points scored here. So Josh Allen, yeah, he should be in pretty much all your cash lineups locked in, no matter what. He's going to be chalky, but it is what it is. He's a freak. Devin Singletary, I've had him in a few of my picks these past few weeks, and he hasn't really performed exactly as I'd want him to. But I think it's just because they haven't been in close games. Devin Singletary is really a usage back for when they want to use him when the game is close. If the game's not close, they throw in James Cook, they throw in Zach Moss. I think Devin Singletary will get a lot of usage here, and with a point total at 54, I think Devin Singletary will pay dividends here. Stephon Diggs, clearly the wide receiver one, but he is relatively expensive. So if you go Allen Diggs stack, you're gonna have to fit in some cheaper guys. Gabe Davis isn't too expensive to the point where you can't fit him in with that double stack there. But he's had low targets and but huge play potential. So, I mean, he's really averaging less than 6 targets a game, but those targets are 50 yards down the field. So if he even catches one of those passes, I mean, for a touchdown, then he's paid off his value there. So he should be good in GPPs. I'd be reluctant to play him in cash lineups just because there's a couple guys around that price that are a little better, in my opinion, at least more consistent. Isaiah McKenzie's at $5,000. He's coming back from that concussion, I believe it is. There's no Jameson Crowder, and Shakir had 16.5 fantasy points in his absence. I think Isaiah McKenzie gets back in. He's right in the same role. He plays in the slot. I think he's going to get a decent amount of volume here. At $5,000, that's pretty cheap. So pretty much the entire Bills offense is in play. Yeah, I wouldn't leave anybody out of this, like out of your lineups completely in this game. The Chiefs a target. It's kind of hard to pick which wide receivers, which receivers will pay off here because he Patrick Mahomes spreads the ball around so much. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to pass a lot because he has to keep up the pace to win the game with the Bills. The Bills' offense is pretty insane. They're putting up 30 plus points pretty much every game. So, yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to have to score here. You're going to have to pass a lot. So, Patrick Mahomes is a decent option. I prefer Allen over Mahomes, but Mahomes could be a sneaky GPP play. The Chiefs could, I mean, shut them down on defense. I know it's hard to think about, but that is an option for that to happen. Yeah, so Travis Kelsey, he's a bit expensive this week, coming off that 4 touchdown game at 7,800, but he's the clear guy that Patrick Mahomes goes to in the end zone. I mean, 7,800, that's very expensive. He's one of the most expensive tight ends. Well, he is the most expensive tight end. Mark Andrews is at 7,000, right below him, and I would prefer Travis Kelsey over Mark Andrews any day. And all the other tight ends are kind of just mediocre. They'll give you 10 to 12 points, but Travis Kelsey, that'll be a difference maker in GPP plays. So if you have a tight end that scores 30 points and all the other tight ends score 10, then you're going to put yourself at a huge edge in the rest of the competition. So I think Kelsey should be in play in a lot of your GPP tournaments. It is hard to fit all these guys in a lineup, though. If you wanted to go Allen, Diggs, and Kelsey, you would have to pay down a lot for the other positions. But I think there are some good values this week at running back, and I'll go over those in just a little bit. And Valdez-Scantling, he's actually my favorite wide receiver for value on the Chiefs. He's averaging 6+ targets a game, and he had 8 targets last game. He's seeing more usage. I think he's probably the most athletic wide receiver that they have. Juju's a little slow. And then, I mean, well, Mecole Hardman's pretty athletic himself. But I think Valdez-Scantling is becoming the wide receiver one. I think Mahomes is looking his way a good bit. So definitely keep an eye on Valdez-Scantling for a lower cost wide receiver on the week with that high point total. Moving on, we got the Cardinals versus Seahawks. The over-under for this is 50.5. So the implied team total is roughly 26. Sorry, I put Bills there. Cardinals. 26 for the Cardinals, and then 24 for the Seahawks. And then, yeah, so players to target on the Cardinals side. Kyler Murray's got he's 7,300. Sorry, I messed up this slide because now it says just rushing upside. I was meant to put in some other stats there, but I totally just moved on. But yeah, he's got rushing upside. He's airing the ball out. He's looking like a great quarterback moving on from the season. I mean, he had a few bad games. His first halves are kind of bleh, but I think against the Seahawks, he's going to have an amazing game. The Seahawks are terrible against the quarterback position. The Lions put up a bunch of points. I mean, pretty much every quarterback that's going up against the Seahawks is just scoring an insane amount. And I think 7,300 is a great bargain for Kyler Murray here. Eno Benjamin is going to be in pretty much all my lineups. He's at 4,600. He's the clear running back one because James Conner's out. Darrell Williams is out. So Benjamin's pretty much locked in. He's even if he gets one or two goal line carries, gets a touchdown. On top of that, if he gets 50 yards rushing and a few more receptions, he's gonna have value. So I think Benjamin is an amazing value for cash games. He could be in your GPP lineups too. So definitely keep an eye on Benjamin this game. He's got I think the DraftKings Sportsbook has him at like minus 100 or something to like 110 to score a touchdown. So the odds are he's going to score a touchdown in Vegas's eyes or DraftKings eyes. Same thing. So Marquise Brown at 7,200, he's got 10 plus targets in the last four games. He's really good. He really hasn't had the huge breakout plays that he normally has either. He's getting these chunk plays, but he hasn't had like a 60 plus yard touchdown that he normally does. So, and I think that he has huge potential to do that here against the Seahawks. And it's the last chance to grab him before Hopkins comes back. I said last change. This whole slide, man. It's his last chance before Hopkins comes back. So I think you should utilize him here. And moving forward, he's going to be a little bit, I don't know, less desirable with Hopkins back. So yeah, definitely target him. Zach Ertz, he's at 4,900. He hasn't been great. He's been performing about the same price as some of these other like $3,500 tight ends. But Seahawks are the worst against tight ends, and he's got 10 plus targets in the last 3 out of 4 games. So I think with that usage, that volume, he's going to have a good game at some point. And the Seahawks are the worst against tight ends. So Ertz is probably going to be in the majority of my lineups. He's cheaper than Travis Kelce. I can just make him fit in a lot more lineups this week. So on the Seahawks side of the ball, we got Geno Smith at 5,700. That is way too cheap. He's been a top 10 quarterback in the last 3 games. He's been throwing the ball. His passer rating is like a 110. I mean, he's been very good, and the Cardinals D is not great. And the Cardinals are probably going to put up a lot of points, so it's going to force him to pass the ball. I think Geno Smith is a great option. He was in the Millie Maker lineup last week. He could be in it again. We got DK Metcalf at 6,800. Wide receiver ones are not doing very well against the Cardinals, so I'd be wary and playing DK. He is a freak of nature though, and he's averaging 10 targets in the last 3 games, and he's gonna get likely more targets here. Tyler Lockett had like a hamstring issue on Thursday. He was taken off the injury report, but I think that Lockett might be limited in this game. You don't put people on the injury report if nothing's wrong with them. And on a Thursday, if you tweak your hamstring, that is not very good because you're going to be playing in 2 days or 3 days after that. And with a hamstring injury, we all know how that happens. I mean, the players will go back on the field, re-aggravate it, think they're good, and then they're out for the rest of the game on the sideline just watching. And so that puts DK Metcalf in a great position to be hyper targeted. And in GPP plays, DK Metcalf, you've got to consider him for sure. But then again, they are good. The Cardinals are good against the wide receiver one position, so it really could go either way. I wouldn't play him in cash lineups, but in tournaments, he could have an amazing game. He could have a crappy game. So keep your eye on DK Metcalf. Kenneth Walker is at 5,400. He's a great value running back, one of the other great value running backs. Honestly, I'm going to play Benjamin against Kenneth Walker in a lot of these lineups just because they're both cheap. They'll average you $5,000 per running back, which leaves you a bunch of room in the other positions to pay up for these expensive wide receivers like Marquise Brown or Diggs or Gabe Davis, somebody like that. So Kenneth Walker, Rashad Penny's out. Homer is out. He will get a ton of work. DJ Dallas is behind him. He's one of my kind of dart throws this week, so keep an eye on him because he is a pass catcher. I'm going to be talking about him in a second, but that's pretty much all I got for the Seahawks. Lockett, I'm off. Like I said, his hamstring issue kind of steered me away from him. You could play the tight ends, Disley or Noah Fant. They're not good against tight ends. I've got them in my dart throws as well. So, moving on from this game. We got the Bucks Steelers. Point total is 46. Implied totals is 28 Buccaneers and then 18 Steelers. So Bucks are this is a huge line. I think yeah, the Bucks are just gonna destroy the Steelers. They have not been good on defense, especially with the passing game. Yeah, I think the Bucks are gonna blow the Steelers out. But I don't think that they're gonna necessarily win by 10, but it's not gonna be a close game. So Tom Brady's at 6,300. That's another great value at quarterback. There's always going to be a great value at quarterback every single week, it seems like. They don't adjust pricing that much because, I mean, he's coming off a 29-point game and a 22-point game last game, and they just really didn't need to throw the ball that much against the Falcons when they played them. So I think Brady is a great play this week as well. So we got Fournette at 7,400. This is really expensive. It's because he's coming off that 35-point game. I don't know how often Brady is going to be throwing Fournette the ball, but last game, I mean, it was pretty telling that he's going to catch a ton of passes. So his baseline is pretty low, just based off of how many receptions he gets in general. In DraftKings, that's kind of invaluable as a running back to catch that many passes. So definitely consider Fournette. He is very expensive. I will have him in one or two of my lineups probably. I'll have some exposure to him, but he won't be on the top of all my lineups. Last week, I really regret fading him, and I hope that he doesn't have like a 35-point game again. To be honest, because I'm not gonna have way too much exposure to him. He's just really expensive. So we got Godwin still super cheap against the Steelers, 32nd ranked against wide receiver. I mean, I think Godwin is Brady's favorite. I think he's his first read pretty much every time. They just, I don't know. He just like targets Godwin all the time. I mean, all these he gets a lot of like short passes. So Godwin, it's definitely in the realm of possibilities for him to get over 10 receptions and over 100 yards and maybe a TD. So definitely keep your eye on Godwin. Super cheap, 6,100. I'm gonna have him in a lot of lineups again. Hopefully he doesn't have another dud like he did last week. I mean, it wasn't a complete dud, but I was expecting way more than 12 points. Mike Evans, he's extremely reliable wide receiver. I mean, he's got every season he's got over 1,000 yards. It seems like. I think that Evans has great hands. I think he's going to be pretty decent in this game. He is kind of expensive. I'm not going to have as much exposure to Evans as I am Godwin, but Evans will be in a few of my lineups as well. The only problem is if the Bucks get out to a pretty huge lead and then they want to run the ball, but it doesn't seem like they're much of a run offense right now. Their offensive line is not very good. So when they're trying to get the run game going, it just doesn't work. So I think in order to get first downs, they're just going to have to air the ball out. But yeah, it's in the realm of possibilities that they don't pass the ball that much and they're really just going to try to establish the run. Steelers to target. So I really don't want to get on too many Steelers this week. These guys are just GPP options, really. Zach Gentry could be a cash game option just because he's so cheap. But Deontay Johnson, the Bucks are number 2 defense against the run. So I don't think that they're going to run the ball much, and they haven't had much success with why can't I remember his name? Najee Harris. They haven't had much success with him or Jalen Warren. So they're going to be down. They're going to be having to pass the ball. Deontay Johnson has the biggest target share. I think at 6,100, he could possibly have a pretty decent game. Zach Gentry, like I said. Freiermuth is out. Bucks are 26th against the tight end, so they might take advantage of that. Zach Gentry seemed to be the number 1 tight end, number 1 pass catcher after Freiermuth was ruled out of last game. So hopefully they continue throwing the ball to Zach Gentry. Even if he gets you like 7 to 10 points, that will return value. And I think that'll be good enough in a cash game if you want to just punt tight end. George Pickens, he's at 8, and 7 targets in the last, I should say, 3 games. I modified last PowerPoint, so I used some of the same data points, and I should have changed that to 3. Anyway, George Pickens, super cheap. I think he's a decent tournament option because, like I said, the Steelers are going to have to air the ball out. He's at 8, and 7 targets, so if he even brings like 5 targets down, gets a touchdown, he will have value. And then, yeah, so those were like the main games I want to touch on. So my honorable mentions for running backs. Saquon Barkley, he's 7,700. He's pretty much the entire Giants offense. He's arguably the best running back in the league. He's getting the most usage, the most targets. Well, not the most targets, but he's getting a lot of targets. He's getting combined opportunities between attempts and targets. So I think Saquon Barkley in cash games, you should definitely have him in your lineup, even in tournaments. It's just hard to fit these elite wide receivers in along with these really expensive running backs, and also like if you want a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, it's really hard to fit these really expensive running backs in. But I think he's definitely he will return value for sure. Dalvin Cook, he's at 7,500. Like I said, he's a little expensive too, but he's having an uptick in usage and he's having more goal line carries. Last game he had over 20 fantasy points. I think he's going to be a decent running back option this week as well. Alvin Kamara, still freakishly cheap. He was 6,600 last week, and he was one of the best running backs on the week. He had 23 attempts and 6 receptions in the last game. So essentially, the entire receiving core is out for the Saints, and Olave is still banged up. I don't know. I mean, he hit his head real bad. That concussion might be lingering, and he could just be limited on the sideline. Or if he gets hit again and re-injures himself, then Alvin Kamara could be in for a really big game. A couple of the other wide receivers could be in for a really big game as well, if that does happen. So keep an eye on that. Alvin Kamara, I think he's too good of a price to pass up. And then we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire and GPP. So he's at 6,300. We covered the Chiefs game. There's just a huge point total here, and I think it's going to be a close game, and he gets a lot of the goal line carries. So with a point total at like 26 plus, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his likelihood of getting a touchdown is pretty decently high. I wouldn't play him in cash, but he could potentially have a really big game. Ramondre Stevenson at 6,000. He's one of my favorite running backs, probably the favorite running back on this list. I mean, the Patriots are a run offense, and Damian Harris is going to be out. Ramondre Stevenson has shown that he's pretty elite the last, like, pretty much all season. But the last game when Harris was out, Ramondre Stevenson had a huge game, massive game. And I think that at 6,000, he's way too cheap to pass up. He catches passes out of the backfield. He's getting used a lot. So Ramondre Stevenson at 6,000, definitely keep an eye on him. You got Breece Hall at 5,800. He's coming off a massive game. I mean, a lot of these prices, it seems like they haven't been adjusted too much just because, I mean, it is the Jets offense. And Breece Hall, he's only had one really, really big game, but he's averaging like 15 points in all of his other games. So I think Breece Hall is a pretty decent option in GPP plays. Even cash, he could be pretty viable as well. So those are my favorite running backs. I'm leaning on Ramondre Stevenson here, and then my other two running backs, like with Eno Benjamin and Kenneth Walker, those guys are really great priced, and they're going to be RB1. So those guys in cash games for sure. But I think if you don't have exposure to some of these elite other running backs like Alvin Kamara or Saquon, then your lineup is kind of capped on your upside potential. So yeah, moving on to wide receivers. So we got Justin Jefferson at the top of the list. He's always a play. I mean, he's just a freak of nature. I think he's arguably the best wide receiver in the league, based on just athleticism. I mean, Cooper Kupp's along up there with him, but I think Justin Jefferson is better. I think Cooper Kupp just has a bigger target share. They're both really good. It's hard to make an argument on either one of why they're the best. They're different players, but yeah, I think Justin Jefferson's always a play. He's just super expensive again. And if you want to stack a quarterback with a wide receiver like an Allen Diggs stack or Mahomes Kelsey stack, well, he's a tight end, but you know what I mean. It's going to be hard to fit Justin Jefferson in a lot of your lineups, but if he's kind of invaluable because he can get you a 30 plus fantasy point game pretty easily. And yeah, Dolphins offense is banged up. I'm not sure if Tua's back in. I heard he got cleared. And then Bridgewater is kind of banged up too. So I'm not sure what's going to happen at that quarterback position. But I know Waddle was a little banged up, and then so was Tyreek Hill. So I think that offense might be a little depleted this week. So that means the Vikings are going to have the ball a good bit more. So I think Justin Jefferson will reap the benefits of that situation. You got Deebo Samuel at 7,700. He's been very consistent. He's facing the 27th ranked Falcons at the wide receiver position. So I think Debo Samuel's definitely in play. He is relatively expensive, but I think he's worth a shot in probably cash and tournaments, just based on how bad the Falcons are at defending the pass. So Debo Samuel, definitely a decent option here. Then you got Michael Pittman. A lot of people are going to be off Michael Pittman just because the last few weeks he just hasn't performed very well. But I think he's due for a big game. I mean, he's just extremely talented. He's a great wide receiver. He's big. I at some point he's got to have a good game. He's just an elite talent. So I think Matt Ryan's going to get it together at some point. He's going to be passing the ball well, and I think he's just due for a breakout. Definitely a tournament play though. I wouldn't stick him in your cash lineups just because of that low floor. And you got Jalen Waddle, so he's real cheap at 6,200. Like I said, he is a little banged up, but it's kind of hard to look over a receiver that can give you 40 points in a game at $6,200. So, yeah, we got Amari Cooper at 5,900. So he's had 10 plus targets in the last 3 or 4 games, and he's had top 10 wide receiver finishes. He's probably actually had several like top five, top six finishes out of those last three as well. So at 5,900, he's real cheap. Definitely work him into some of your lineups. Not sure if I would throw him in cash just because he has had like a 2 point game. But yeah, they're going to be passing the ball a lot. Amari Cooper is a freak. Definitely consider him. We got Romeo Dobbs, and he's at 4,800. I think Aaron Rodgers and him are building a little bit of rapport over time. Romeo Dobbs is getting a good amount of targets. You got Alan Lazard there. There's really just not that many playmakers on the Packers offense, and I think Romeo Dobbs is one of the ones who's been stepping up, and he's really been showing that he's pretty talented, and he's a rookie, so every game he plays, he's going to get a little bit better. At 4,800, that's a great price. Packers are projected to win that game by a good bit, and so their point total's around like it's over 20 for sure. So I think Romeo Dobbs probably catches a touchdown, gets 5, 6, 7 receptions. I think he's a great play at that price. Yeah, Devin Duvernay. So he's too cheap, man. I mean, Rashad Bateman's out, so he's just a great price at 4,700. Devin Duvernay is obviously the wide receiver one on that team. Lamar Jackson throws to him a lot. He's got the breakout potential. He could have some pretty huge plays. So Devin Duvernay, definitely work him into some of your lineups as well. So for tight end, we got Mark Andrews. He's pretty expensive, like I said before. I prefer Kelsey over Andrews, but it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of different exposure to different guys. He's had 10 plus targets in the last 3 or 4 games. Andrews, I mean, he's definitely the number 2 tight end in the league. And just to reiterate the point, if you have a tight end that scores 30 points and all the other tight ends score 10 to 15 points, it just really it gives you a huge edge on the competition. So that could be the difference and winning $100,000, $1,000,000 versus 30. So we got David Njoku. He's been extremely consistent in the last 3 games. He's had 10, 7, and 6 targets. He's still super cheap. His ceiling's pretty high. He had like a 22-point game a few games back, and then the last 2 games he's had roughly like 10 to 12 points. So his floor is relatively low, and his ceiling is pretty decently high. So I think you should work him into your tournament lineups. Evan Ingram at 3,500. This is kind of a riskier play, but he is very cheap. Colts are 28th against tight end, and he had 10 targets in the last game. So I think Trevor Lawrence is looking his way a good bit more. So Evan Ingram, definitely work him into a few of your lineups if you can. Just another cheap tight end option. Then we got Hayden Hurst at 3,300. He is questionable, but he's been questionable the last few games, and he's been performing. So I'm not sure if Hayden Hurst had an amazing game up against the Ravens last game because they were like trying to make a point on the revenge game. But he had like 17 points, and at 3,300, that's pretty excellent. That's a great value, and he's averaging like 10 fantasy points per game. Most importantly, T. Higgins is out, and he's got, I think Burrow was kind of struggling with throwing the ball to Jamar Chase, so I think Hayden Hurst could have another really big game. Yeah. Moving on, I think yeah, we got the dart throws. Like I said earlier, DJ Dallas at 4,600. He's a veteran pass catching running back behind rookie Kenneth Walker. He's not like super veteran, you know what I mean, but he's had some experience with the team, whereas Kenneth Walker, he's a veteran in comparison to Kenneth Walker. So he might get you a bunch of points pass catching, and who knows, Kenneth Walker might fumble the ball, and then they're like, oh crap, let's give the ball to DJ Dallas and just give him a ton of workload. So yeah, there's that. I think he's a decent kind of like sneaky play. I wouldn't throw him in cash lineups or anything like that, but he's very cheap. Definitely an affordable running back. Alec Pierce, he is up and coming. Matt Ryan seems to like him a lot. He's been getting kind of like the longer targets downfield instead of Michael Pittman. And if Michael Pittman's like double teamed, or if they stick the best cornerback or safety on Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce is going to be that second option. So I think he's a really good price at 4,300. Definitely put him in consideration. Rondell Moore, he came back from his injury last week and he had 8 targets. He's kind of in that slot role at 4,200. That's a pretty great price for 8 targets. If he's gonna emulate that again, I think he's definitely in play. That game has a high point total, so Rondell Moore could be a sneaky play there. We got McCole Hardman at 4,000. We talked about the Chiefs a little bit earlier. I think McCole he's very fast. He's one of those guys who is a breakout candidate where he could have a pass like or like a reception for 50 plus yards and a TD. It's another high point total game, so don't sleep on McCole Hardman. He could potentially have a great game. He is the most veteran wide receiver along with Patrick Mahomes. They just have a more rapport. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster has obviously been in the league longer, um, but he's veteran to that team, if that makes sense. So McCole Hardman could be a good play. Pierre Strong at $4,000. He's behind Ramondre Stevenson. So you never know. Ramondre might get injured. It could be the same situation where he fumbles and then they throw Pierre Strong in. But he's going to be a running back too. And maybe like Ramondre jumps into that Damian Harris role. And then Pierre Strong jumps into that Ramondre Stevenson role. So he could potentially have a great game at $4,000. I mean, that's super cheap. That's the cheapest you're going to get a running back at. So Pierre Strong, I picked him up off of waivers on my fantasy league, just kind of just as a backup, just to see what happens with him because you never know. He could have a great game. And then you got Keontae Ingram. Sorry, it's spelled a little weird, but yeah, same exact premise. You got a $4,000 running back, and he's behind Benjamin, and there's literally only 2 running backs that are healthy. James Conner's hurt, and then you got Darrell Williams out, and then there's one other guy that I can't remember. But there's 5 running backs total. Only 2 are healthy. Keontae Ingram could be a sneaky play at $4,000. If he gets a touchdown and like 4 or 5 receptions for 50 yards, like he had a great game. Just with that price tag, anything could happen. So I think he's a good play there. Got Darius Slayton at 3,800. I watched that Packers Giants game. It seemed like Darius Slayton was the wide receiver one in that last game. You got Kadarius Toney, who was out. Wan'Dale Robinson was out too. He's coming back this week, but I think that Daniel Jones might just like Darius Slayton, and he could be throwing him the ball a good bit this week as well. At 3,800, that's super cheap. Yeah, if he even gets you 15 points, you're gravy. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, even cheaper. He is questionable, but he's expected to play. He is a freak of nature. He is a very similar player to Kadarius Toney. He's a playmaker. You just get him the ball, and he can make huge plays. So if he is actually healthy and coming back at 3,600, super cheap. Don't sleep on him either. He could be a big wide receiver one with a 20-plus point game this week. And then you got either Noah Fant or Will Dissly. The Seahawks are going up against the Cardinals, and their tight end D is terrible. They're one of the worst in the league, if not the worst. So yeah, Noah Fant or Will Dissly there. It's kind of hard to pick between the two. Dissly's kind of like that big play guy where I've seen him go for 30, 40 yards and get a touchdown. And yeah, Lockett could be limited on the sideline, so it kind of limits Geno Smith's passing options. So Noah Fant, Will Disley, those guys are kind of like some dart throws that you should put into consideration. Moving on to defense, our last and final section, we got Rams D. They're up against the Panthers this week. Panthers are just a total train wreck. PJ Walker is going to be the starting quarterback, it seems. He really, I mean, he's had some success, but from what I've seen this season, and even in last season, he's not a very good decision maker with the ball. He takes a lot of sacks. He makes bad throws. He'll throw a pick. I'm sure he will. He'll take at least 4 sacks, like for sure. So yeah, he holds the ball too long. He throws the ball into coverages that he shouldn't. I think the Rams are going to have a great defensive game. They are the most expensive defense on the slate, but I think they will pay up and pay dividends just because they're the best like it's the best D option. Um, and we got the Bucks. They are a great defense. They're great at stopping the run. They're up against the Steelers, and the Steelers have not really had much offense going. They were better with Trubisky, and now that they have Pickett as the quarterback, it just seems like their offense isn't very cohesive. They're probably going to give up a lot of sacks. Pickett is a rookie; he's probably going to throw a couple picks. So I think the Bucks could potentially shut the Steelers out completely. Their defense is just unmatched. I think they're probably the best D in the league behind the Bills, and they're going up against one of the worst offenses. So Bucks in play for sure. The Saints, they are playing the Bengals, and Joe Burrow is giving up a ton of sacks. I think the Saints are kind of a sneaky play. They're at 2,800, so a little bit cheaper than the Rams. Rams are 4,100. Bucks are around 3,800, and then the Saints are at 2,800. So if you're trying to price in a defense that's a little cheaper but has a higher upside, I would go with the Saints. And like I said earlier, Bengals are without T. Higgins. So I think the Saints could be a good play because T. Higgins really opens up their entire offensive playbook. And then we got the Panthers, the cheapest bottom of the barrel defense. I don't care what you say. The offense of the Panthers is terrible, but the defense is great. And Stafford makes bad decisions. He's the only offense he has is Cooper Kupp. If they lock down Cooper Kupp, their offense is pretty much non-existent. This is going to be a huge defensive battle game. I'll take the under, unless the Panthers just they're totally demoralized because they lost their head coach, they lost their defensive coordinator. So it could go either way in this game, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the Panthers have playmakers and the Panthers are really good, a really good defensive team. That's the only reason why we've even had any close games. We've really only given up a lot of points to the 49ers, and that was last week. So I think the Rams, their offense is a little overrated. They can't get their run game going. Cam Akers sucks. Henderson sucks. I think the Panthers are going to be a decent play at that 2,400 price tag because I'd rather pay down for a defense that has the potential to be one of the best defenses on the week in these tournament lineups than pay up for the Rams potentially or something like that. And somehow PJ Walker has an amazing game, and then you just wasted like an extra $1,700 that you could have put towards an elite running back or an elite wide receiver. So Panthers in GPP, I think they could be a good play. Even in cash, I think they could be a good play because in cash you really want to maximize the wide receivers and the running backs and the quarterbacks. Those are more important than the defense and cash games, in my opinion. All right, so we did that in 38 minutes. That's a little better than the last few times. So let's just build a lineup real quick. Yeah, I mean, I'll just build a lineup for you guys. Well, let's throw this one in the Millie Maker, and I'll kind of go through my thought process of, building this lineup. So I'm going to start off with Josh Allen. I want this game. I want, like, most of the players in this game. And we can go with the dig stack, and then on the Chiefs side of the ball, let's grab Kelsey. And then, like I said, that leaves you with, like, nothing else. Like, it leaves you with 4,000 remaining salary. But there are some cheap running backs. I'm going to go with the Panthers D just because the Rams are 32nd against the Rams. And maybe it could go either way, right? Like getting rid of the head coach could galvanize the defense. Getting rid of the defensive coordinator could galvanize the team. So you never know. I think paying down for the Panthers is kind of a smart decision for the most part. And then we can go all the way down to, we can look at some cheaper wide receiver options. One of the guys, like I said, I like is Darius Slayton. And then who was another one that I liked? Uh, just to get the other side of the ball a little bit, I'll probably go with Valdez Scantling, and then let's go with these cheaper running backs. Eno Benjamin, and then the Kenneth Walker, and that leaves us this 4,900. Yeah, and then like we want to get different, so we could either go Romeo Dobbs here or Devin Duvernay. Either one of those guys, I like. Um, let's go Dobbs, and then I'll leave that, and that's like a pretty nice lineup that I'm like relatively comfortable with. I mean, obviously, the upside is like kind of capped if Darius Slayton doesn't do well. And then yeah, but I think this is a pretty like good lineup overall. And then if you want to do something like a little bit more balanced, which I'll do one more balanced lineup here real quick. Like, and I mean balance is I'm not paying down like significantly for one of the players. Like, kind of keep everybody around like 5,000. You can do. So what I'm gonna do actually for this one, I'm gonna grab Kyler Murray because he's going up against the Seahawks, and then I'm gonna stack him with Marquise Brown, then Godwin. Kind of just like these cheaper guys around the $6,000 price range. And then they said he doesn't have an injury designation, but honestly, I'm not trying to grab him. We could go Waddle. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pay down for someone. So let's actually go like Isaiah McKenzie just to get a little different. And then there's some decent tight end options. I'm gonna go with Ertz. And then let's pick like the Saints D probably, or we could just go Panthers again. Let's see where the Saints leave us at for the rest. So Ramondre is going to be my other target. Ramondre, and then I'm going to throw Eno Benjamin in here too. But any of these guys like Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, those guys are all guys I like this week. And then looking at this, whoever's left over, either Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper would be decent options. Let's just go ahead and lock in either one of those guys. Here, wait, let me look real quick. Because I'm looking at the target shares. 12, 10, 11, 13. So, I mean, the thing is, he hasn't really performed well. Yeah, I'd rather go Amari Cooper here. Yeah, there we go. Oh, wait, no, I'm looking at this lineup now. I don't want to stack, Brown and Ertz, probably. Yeah, let's do... I'm going to do a different running back. Let's go Kenneth Walker, and then let's see who's in this price range. So I really like Myers, actually. I didn't include him in the video, but he's gotten like a bunch of targets, and he's done very well. He's got that upside. Only problem is the Cleveland Browns defense is pretty good, but I think a few people, like I think Miles Garrett or Jadavion Clowney got ruled out, so that'll give that'll give either Mac Jones or Zappy some time to pass. I can't remember if Mac Jones is playing this week or not. He's questionable. Regardless, even Zappy got the ball to Myers pretty consistently, so let's just throw Myers in. All right, that's a good lineup, I think. Right there, we got the double stack. We got the other side of the ball with the Seahawks, and we got upside with Isaiah McKenzie, and then Godwin. Yep, I like it. Let's go ahead and enter that one in. All right, that'll be it for this video this week. Yeah, those lineups are kind of just tournament lineups for a cash lineup. Here, I'll show you real quick what I would kind of do for a cash lineup. I'm not going to enter this into the Millie Maker, but I'll just build this real quick. So we're going to do Diggs, and then so I'm probably just going to stack those two guys. And then let's get the other side of the ball with Valdez Scantling. And then let's throw Eno in here. And then we got, I'm going to put Ramondre in. And for tight end, let's do like Gentry. And then let's see where the Rams D leaves us. Boyd, Garrett Wilson. I mean, honestly, bro, this is a good idea. Just completely stack the Bills side of the ball. Because in cash lineups, you're getting exposure to the entire Bills offense, unless Devin Singletary like scores every single touchdown, which I don't really see happening. But this is actually a pretty great lineup in cash. I'll probably stick with this and like put that in all my cash lineups. So yeah, that's it. That is it. Thank you so much for listening. If you stayed the entire 50 minutes, you are a real one. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and commenting. You guys are the best. Have a good one. Bye.